It's 26 minutes to 8. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we're joined now by Mr. Bamidele Aturu to focus on this forthcoming national conference. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Oh, the pleasure is mine.
Well, interestingly, we always have people talking about one thing or the other. We had some people lately talk about what happens to the outcome of the conference. Should it go to the National Assembly? When it does, what role would the Assembly play? Because it looks as if some people have eventually settled that this conference will hold. But from your perspective, holding this conference, what do you see us achieving with this?
Well, I think that maybe the way to answer that question, if you don't mind, is to ask what is the federal government going to achieve by having this conference. And I say this advisedly because...
Not the people, the federal government?
Not the people of Nigeria. I have said it before, and I think it's important to repeat it again, that I'm not expecting much from the national conference, given the hostility of members of the elite to the convener of the conference in the first place, particularly the hostility of even the current president to the convener of the conference. But of course, people change, and it's our desire that government should be responsive. So I must commend the president for responding to the yearnings of the people who have been calling for national conference. But my own position has always been that if you are going to hold a national conference that is going to produce results, that conference must be premised on certain activities by the people themselves.
Such as?
I mean, for example, we look at what happened in 2012 when people were talking about all these fuel thieves all over the place. You saw that Nigeria itself became, a massive or a big, huge, conference venue, as it were. When you have a conference now following such a very massive activity of the people, then of course you can then begin to talk about concessions from the ruling elite. But what we're having
doesn't necessarily follow.
No, it does, because I mean, if you see the history of previous national conferences anywhere in the world, where concrete results have been produced, you have seen that they were based on, movements, by the people to ensure that there is justice, social equity in the society. But what we are doing now today, as I've said before, there's nothing wrong with it, because I've always insisted that we can always talk. There's nothing wrong with talking. But if this conference ends as a mere talking shop, it will be a disaster. And because the question you framed, what are we going to gain? I say this, National Assembly is there, you are going to submit the same report from the conference. I mean, the report from the conference to the National Assembly. For me, that is a wasteful duplication of efforts and resources.
So are you saying that if we had no major movement, we shouldn't have a conference?
Well, we're having conferences every day. If you go to all the five-star hotels.
A national one.
National conference.
Yeah.
Now, a conference is not national just because you select and unpick a few people to go and sit in Abuja. The point I'm making is that a conference is national, not just in terms of the composition, but also in terms of the issues they're going to be addressing. Now you have no-go areas. And I think that is fundamentally flawed.
No, areas or area?
Well, if you say you cannot discuss sovereignty of the country.
That's the only area you just...
No, but sovereignty is not just in terms of politics. What of the economy? There are many things that are subsumed under sovereignty. So for me, when you say you cannot, even if it's just one area, that is a very critical area. That is a very fundamental area that you are denying people who are in this conference, the opportunity of expressing their opinion on.
Don't you think by saying don't go to that area, it's just to help the people stay focused on issues that might be subsumed, so to speak?
Now, this is the problem I have with the conference. Once you start and say you can't discuss a particular issue,
and the visibility of the country.
Yes, that means you are gagging the people. Now, you see, you are also imagining that you are the repository. I mean, you have this exclusive law for Nigeria. There are many people, like you and I, who don't want Nigeria to break. I will always say it anywhere. It is good for Nigeria to remain one, but to remain as a country that is run by a just government, a government that loves, equity, a government that is fair to all, but not a government that will force people together, without justice. So, but when you now go out and say, please don't go and discuss this area, then of course, you are then giving the impression that you have already started to gag the right of the people to express themselves. And I think this is unfortunate.
Are you not looking at the reason why they gave that perspective?
No reason, in my view, can be good enough. Because you see, it's also smacks of undue paternalism. You see, many people love Nigeria more than people who are in government. Many people want Nigeria to remain one. But when you are discussing issues of sovereignty, issues of whether Nigeria is dissoluble or not, then people are going to be bringing many other items on the table. Namely, if you want a just Nigeria, if you want Nigeria to remain one, what are the things that we need to do to ensure that Nigeria is one? And that will help Nigeria move forward. But if you then deceive yourself and say, there are no problems, don't go and discuss this issue, then you'll be papering over many things. At the end of the day, then people will be laughing with themselves at the conference, and we will not be able to bring out those things that can cement this country together as one nation.
So are you saying that when the conference committee said they went round, they got the opinion of people, and they didn't even really harp too much on, let us go and discuss how we will split up? It doesn't matter for you that the people say they don't want to discuss that part?
Well, in fairness to the committee, I have not seen the report, but I imagine that even if they spoke to people and those people told them that we should not discuss some issues, certainly it won't be all Nigerians. So it depends on who they spoke to.
Majority of those who submitted memorandum.
Okay, the elite who met them in those 5-star hotels in
was it just
Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt.
It was just the elite you saw.
Well, those are the only people that spoke to them. Certainly, they didn't speak to the market women.
Why didn't you go yourself?
No, I expressed
they
my
didn't
views.
exclude everybody.
No, my views on the national conference are well known to Nigerians, and I've made this quite clear. We should not run away from the national conference. Those who have the time should go there and engage the process. That's my position, because we can always gain by talking. So I will not dismiss any opportunity for people to address the problems of this country. But what I'm saying is that we must then not be carried away to think that this national conference is going to achieve a lot for this country. That's my view.
Because now I think I'm getting a little bit worried, because when you talk about your view and you also say there's a need for us to talk, but you don't seem to get any kind of positive vibe out of this conference that is yet to start. How well can you now convince me that it is important that we talk? Do we talk for talk's sake, and at the end of it all, believe just the way you have believed that nothing will come out of it?
Now, you see, my own position is that the critical segments, very few of them who are in the national conference, can always raise issues that will expose further the lack of ideas of the ruling elite. And for me, if I had the time, unfortunately I don't have the time, I regret to say that, to be at the conference, I will be raising issues, for example, about equity and fairness, how to ensure that we restructure our reward system in Nigeria, by which I mean that remuneration system must be restructured in such a way that nobody in this country will earn less than 50,000 naira, and no public official will earn more than 250,000 naira. I mean, because this will make people who are occupying public offices to then respect fellow Nigerians. But when you have a situation where governors, members of the National Assembly are still debating whether it is good to pay workers a living wage of 18,000 naira, and some people are earning over 5 million naira, apart from the loot that they get, of course, unlawfully from our resources, then of course they can't respect Nigerians. This is why you see people can afford to buy as many huge generators as they can afford, as they can get. And so PHCN or whatever they say they've cannibalized into now can go to places. I'm sorry to be using that language. So the point I'm making is that they won't bother about whether we generate electricity or not. Now, people can buy private jets. They won't bother about whether the roads are motorable or not. They won't bother about whether our aviation sector is even working, aviation sector. So the point I'm making is that when you now compress the wage structure in such a way that you make it equitable, and then you begin to strike at the root of the kind of rickety capitalism that we are practicing in this country,